Well, welcome. And the proposal of this deeper study of the Spirits book, it's because the Spirits book is the spine of our doctrine. So why not study it in a deeper level where obviously if we come here on a weekly basis, it's because we find ourselves in connection or in accordance with what we feel and with what we hear. So at some point, it's interesting for us to know a little bit further what the principles, the concepts, the precepts of this doctrine say to us and teach us. So I had prepared a few slides for you so it would be less boring, because the idea is that this study is more like a conversation, that you can ask questions and we'll go into the source to look for the answers. I am in love with the Spirits book because in the Spirits book we are gonna find answers for any questions you might have. Everything. I ask questions and the answers are here somehow. And I separate some of the jewels, the pearls of the Spirits book as I see it. But the invitation is that you just fall in love with it, as I fell in love with it, and you look for your own jewels in the book. So it's a thick book, right? And then when it was written in 1857 was published. So of course the language is not a modern language, a colloquial language, right? It's formal. So it's kind of, am I gonna read this without some kind of help, some kind of interest being brought upon us? So, Allan Kardec, we've all heard about that guy, right? In 1857, he publishes Le Livre des Esprits, the Spirits book. And how did it come about? Who was Kardec? Historically, it always starts in France around 1850s when we had the turning tables phenomena. The turning tables phenomena, or the dance of the tables as it was called, was something that was happening in Paris, in France. And the idea was that there were tables that would answer the questions, and it was more like fun. So people would sit around and see the phenomena happening. And at one point, Allan Kardec, who was a polymath, Allan Kardec was a linguist. He was a man who knew a lot about everything, right? So he was a teacher, he was an educator, and at one point he gets into one of these meetings, parties, right, with the turning table phenomena, and he observes. And through tapping and through several kinds of methods that they had then, people would sit around the table, would ask questions to the table, and with a yes or no code, the table would answer those questions, and that would be fun for the people. At some point, Kardec goes, and when he sees what's going on, he, as an intellectual, as a man of great knowledge, he stops and he thinks, these are intelligent answers that are coming. So if there is an intelligent effect, it must have an intelligent cause. A table cannot answer a question, can it? But if you ask an intelligent question and you have an intelligent answer, that means that the source of the questions, of the answers, cannot be something non-intelligent. Makes sense? And that's how it came about. He got more and more interested, and at some point he decided to ask specific questions and get specific answers from several different mediums that were in this form. So the doctrine in the Spirit's book was codified, as we say, by Allan Kardec. But we like to say that this doctrine was not from man. This doctrine is the doctrine of the spirits, because the answers came from that source. Make sense? So far so good? You all knew that already, right? So, the answers were made through the communication with the spirits, through the mediums, and by asking specific questions, we would get all these answers from different mediums in different locations. And Kardec would get all that material and would select and would put it in order and codify and come up with these brilliant questions, right? And one thing, Kardec, as a scientist, he would make sure to use a scientific method to this body of work. So there is something called the universality of the answers. He would send these same questions to different groups, to different mediums, and the answers, if they wouldn't coincide, it wouldn't be valid. So what happens is he asks the same questions, he sends to different groups, and he gets the same answers. That's called the universality and consistency of the knowledge, which proves again that this knowledge is not coming from tables, right? They're coming from the spirits. So, the Spirit's book is the collection of all these questions and answers. Questions made by Kardec to different groups of mediums, yeah? And these answers were consistently received with the same message. And that's how he applies this scientific method where you have a control of the experience. So, the Spirit's book comes about, and contains the doctrine or theory of Spiritism. Right in the preface of the book, okay, you have the translator's preface. We have a big discussion where Kardec has, let me see where I am here. Okay. Where Kardec, as an intellectual and a scientist and a learned man, he's very methodical in his study and in his presentation. So he likes to have different words for different concepts. The first difference that he establishes is between spiritualism and spiritist. Our doctrine is the doctrine of the spirits. It's spiritism. What is the difference between spiritualism and spiritism? Who knows? Try something. The difference between spiritualism and spiritism. Let me put it in a different way. Is every spiritist a spiritualist? Is every spiritist? Are we spiritists? Who consider themselves here spiritists? Okay. As spiritists, are we spiritualists? Yes. Every spiritualist is a spiritist? No. Why? Spiritualism is a concept that's broader. It's just opposed to materialism. If you believe in anything other than the physical material world, if you believe there is something bigger than the mortal mind, if you believe that there is something more after we die or before we are born, if there is anything other than the matter, right, from the materialistic world, then you are a spiritualist. Which doesn't mean that you believe in what we believe, which is the existence of the spiritual world, the existence of spirits, and the possibility of communication with the spirits. So Spiritism goes a little further, a little bit more specific. Okay, so every spiritist is a spiritualist, but not every spiritualist is a spiritist. Makes sense? Yes? So Spiritism is the relation of the material world with the spirits or beings of the invisible world. This world in another dimension that we can't see, we can feel it, right? And Spiritism is going to study as a science how this relationship between these two worlds, the corporeal and physical world and the spiritual world, happens, and how they relate to each other. Okay? I think it's fun. Call me crazy. So, I was going to ask somebody to read, but I guess it's going to have to be me. Spiritism is a science that deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of spirits and their relations with the corporeal world. That's the definition of Spiritism by Allan Kardec. Okay? This beautiful word, Prolegomena. Prolegomena only means some facts, pre-ideas, pre-concepts before you actually start the book. So the Prolegomena, before we start the questions and answers on the Spirit's book, it's real. Normally people start reading the Spirit's book, they go to question 1, right? The introduction, all this is in the introduction. They go deep into the life of Kardec, and you know a little bit more about the man and the principles that are going to be studied throughout the book. So in the Prolegomena, there is this beautiful design. I don't know if you've noticed. It's in every edition of the Spirit's book, because it was ordered by the Spirits to be there. And it's a beautiful image that it brings. So, the Spirits say that this vine branch is a nice analogy, where the stem would be compared to our physical body, our material body. The soul, we are going to get to the difference between soul and spirit for us. The soul would be the fruit, symbolizing the union of the body and the spirit. And the spirit is the juice of the fruit. So I think it's a beautiful analogy that they make, and that was asked by the Spirits to be. this image of the vine branch, it's written in the book, man's labor calls forth the latent qualities of the juice. So through work, right, our spirit can act on matter. The labor of the body develops through the knowledge thus acquired, the latent powers of the soul. So our juice, right, our liquor, through the union with our body in the material world, is able to acquire knowledge. That's the reason for reincarnation, right? We have to come to the material world in order to develop of our knowledge, okay? So I thought that was a very beautiful analogy. Anyway, the Spirit's book is divided in 4 parts, or 4 books, depending on the translation, right? 4 parts or 4 books. The first part is called the first cause. Second part is about the spirit world. Third part is the ethical laws. And the fourth part is about hopes and solaces. So in all these parts, it's going to be divided by questions. In the first part, remember that I said the Spirit's book is the foundation for the doctrine. We have in this doctrine 5 main books, which are, nobody wants, I don't think you like the Spirit's book as much as I do. What are the 5 books of our doctrine? The Spirit's book.
The Gospel according to Spiritism.
The Gospel according to Spiritism.
Medium's book.
The Medium's book.
Heaven and Hell.
Heaven and Hell.
And Genesis.
And Genesis. These are the 5 main books that Allan Kardec left us. Why the Spirit's book is so important? From this first cause, the part 1 of the Spirit's book, the first questions that are in part 1 or book 1, the first cause is going to talk about, it's like the Kardecian cosmogenesis, right? So it's going to talk about God. It's going to talk about where we come from. It's going to talk about how we got here. This book, this part is going to answer more like scientific questions, right? And that's going to be the origin of the book Genesis, one of the 5 books. The second, the spirit world, talks about spiritual world and the life of the spirits. It would originate what book? Which book talks about the spirits? The Medium's book. The Medium's book. So most of the material covered in the spirit world is going to be the origin for the Medium's book. Ethical laws. The laws, divine laws. Gospel according to Spiritism, very good. And hopes and solace, what happens after we make the transition? It's going to originate, what happens, where do we go after we leave this world? Heaven and Hell, it's the 5th book. So you see, if we go through the Spirit's book, pretty much we are going to have a general idea of the 5 books. So you don't need to read the other ones. I'm just kidding. Guys, you don't like the Spirit's book. This is killing me.
We do.
You do? But you are so quiet today.
We're taking it in.
Taking it in. Okay. So, now we really actually are going to start the questions. In the first part of the Spirit's book, nobody brought the Spirit's book, huh? Hmm? Nobody brought it?
We have two here to sell.
Good. So if you need it, $15. Part 1, first cause, right? The first cause. It's gonna talk, it has 4 chapters. God, the general elements of the universe, creation, and the vital principle. So these 4 chapters compose part 1 of the book, which are gonna be afterwards, gonna become Genesis, okay? So, we are gonna start today a little bit just about chapter 1, which is God. So, question number 1.
The Spirit's Book, written by Allan Kardec. Question number 1. What is God? God is a supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things.
So now we have question number 1, and Kardec shows already his genius and shows us what kind of good hands we are in. How does he phrase question number 1? What is God? He doesn't ask who is God. He asks what is God. If you want better answers, ask better questions, correct? If you ask who is God, then you are assuming that's a person. That's somewhat an anthropomorphic version of God. But he asks a better question. He asks, what is God? And the answer is, God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things. I find this answer perfection. Because this answer, not only very scientific, you don't need to believe in anything, do you? What is God? God is the cause, the supreme cause, the supreme intelligence. Because if we are in a course, in a journey to develop spirituality, I can't understand a journey to develop spirituality that does not conceive anything bigger than our mortal mind. Does it? If we think what we can comprehend, our mortal, finite minds are all there is to it, then don't look for spirituality. But if you are in a journey to spirituality, it must include something bigger than us, right? And some kind of intelligence that is beyond what we can comprehend. So, God is the supreme intelligence, first cause of all things. That's question number 1 of the Spirit's book. And if that doesn't grab you right there and then I don't know what to tell you. Now, questions 1 through 9 are going to speak exactly about God, right? And I'm going to go the first cause of all things. And then somebody's going to say, well, but science has proven that the first cause of all things was the Big Bang, right? Does Spiritism fight with science? No. So, is God the Big Bang? No. But the question is, who banged the bang? Right? The Big Bang explains how it all starts, but doesn't explain why. Or to what will. It's not a cause, it's just a fact, right? Or at least it's the most acceptable fact. So, when I have the explanation of the first cause of all things, the supreme intelligence, something much bigger than mine, right? It does not eliminate any kind of scientific proof of what we have nowadays. So we are okay with science. And at the same time, being okay with science development and everything that we know does not take away anything from the power and magnificence of God. Right? So, there is a big conversation in these 9 first questions of why God can be proven by an exercise, a philosophical exercise, a logical sense of train of thought, right? And we have 2 possibilities. Either everything that is here that we see is chance, or there is an intelligent source. Either it's chance, and we all end up here by chance, or there is an intelligent source. Make sense? An intelligent chance would no longer be chance. Right? There is no effect without a cause. So, if you look around you, everything that was not made by men was made by some force, some source that's bigger, stronger, higher than what our mind. And I'll leave you with one of the most beautiful sentences in the Spirit's book as far as I'm concerned. The intelligence of God is revealed in his works, as that of a painter in his picture. So God's touch is in everything in creation. We look at the creation and we can see the touch of the artist, the touch of the creator, including us. So I hope this overall first view of the Spirit's book gave you some curiosity and some burning desire to go through this wonderful doctrine. I don't know about you, but Spiritism has given me the strength, the explanation, the logic, the support, the comfort, the rationale for me to become a better person and to try to make this a better world. I hope that does that for you too. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next month with the next chapter.
The Spirit's book by Allan Kardec, among other Spiritist works, can be purchased at ediceiofamerica.com. That is EDICEI of America.com. Thank you for watching.